We're live.
Okay, and we're live. Okay, welcome to ATD Podcast, where we talk about all things Anoa'i Dynasty. I'm Monty. I'm here with Leslie, Lauren, and the lovely Miss Vale Anoa'i. Vale, oh my gosh, this has been a long time coming. Whew. Okay, I'm sorry. Nerves, excitement. I'm going to go ahead and pass this baton to Leslie. Leslie is going to take us here, okay? Thank you so
Alrighty.
much. Leslie, you
Oh
have the floor.
gosh. Thank you, Monty. Thank you for that. Thank you for the intro, as always. And thank you, Miss Vale, for a million times. It makes my heart so happy, and I'm so humbled that you would take your time out of your day to be with our little pod. And it honors us so much with you visiting with us today. So, I guess my job is I want to start off, okay, by I found a Facebook post of yours,
Mhm.
and you know how you have the Facebook memories. So I'm going to let you
Oh,
introduce
yes.
yourself by asking you the question that you asked your followers, okay? I can't remember the date, but in it you asked us in your own words, who is
Oh,
Vale Anoa'i? So, Miss Vale, in your own words, who is Vale Anoa'i?
that's a really good question and a great kind of icebreaker way to start things off. Who is Vale Anoa'i? Vale Anoa'i is one small part of a gigantic dynasty that spans beyond just professional wrestling. I'm a special education teacher. I'm an actress, an artist, a dancer, a mermaid. I am the living incarnation of the idea of living your dreams and just being all of who you are and never letting the magic die. That's my mission, to always keep the magic alive and just be all of who you are.
Perfect, perfect. I love it. I love it. So we have all kind of got our own little sections and our own little things that we want to talk about and just hold conversation with you about. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Lauren, and let Lauren uh, do her thing. Lauren.
Oh, this is cool because I had no idea I was going first. So, hey, Vale.
Hi.
Uh, I just, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. One, like Leslie has said, thank you so much for coming on and wanting to do this with us. It's an absolute honor and a privilege to do this. So, especially with you. So, it means the world to us. So, thank you. Um, First question, and I know we kind of talked about it just a little bit before, but like I just want to talk about your art
Mhm.
and like your love of mermaids and stuff because I know we share that common. We have that in common.
Oh, I can talk about that all day. Well, that giant pile, let me see, this is weird because I'm pointing this way and my finger's going this way. That giant pile you see behind me is just one stack of my art. It's pretty much floor to ceiling. Those are my bigger canvas pieces. But as far as how I kind of embraced the mermaid life, I mean, I've always, from the time I was maybe 2 years old, been massively obsessed with mermaids. Of course, being born in 1985, The Little Mermaid was my whole life as a child. That and Splash and a bunch of other like iconic mermaid movies of that era. And I just never kind of grew out of that. And I've always painted. I've always been an artist, drawing and painting. And I would say in the last year and a half, really, is when it just went full fledged into the mermaid world. And then after my dad passed away, I felt like I had no direction. I felt anchorless because my entire world, my entire universe was him, his needs, his businesses, his health. Everything in my life was based on dad. So after he passed away, I had this moment, more like weeks, where I just felt like, who am I now? What do I do with my life? I don't know who I am outside of being like dad's everything. So that's when I found this little mermaid shop that had just opened in my town, barely 5 minutes away from my house. And I said, okay. And by then I'd already started doing mermaiding as a side hobby. And then I went in there one day, and that, what intended to be a 5-minute hello to the owner, ended up being 2.5 hours of me sitting there talking to her. And next thing you know it, she made me their brand ambassador and gave me a renewed sense of purpose, having a reason to exist outside of just my job and my immediate family. It's like now I have something to kind of light that fire under me again, and to fill the void that not having WXW and not having dad, like it was a humongous hole in my heart and in my life. So going full blown into the mermaid life just kind of brought back a sense of passion and purpose. So, and then I created the Vale the Mineola Mermaid page, and it's like, this is exactly what I needed to jumpstart my life again and figure out who I am outside of that title of being dad's daughter and dad's caretaker and dad's business manager and everything else. It's like, who am I? Well, now I can start to build my life, and it's a whole different world, but it's still in a way similar because it's still the entertainment world, and I'm still creating content like a maniac the way I always did for dad and WXW. So, and I am constantly painting mermaids, drawing mermaids, just everything mermaids.
I absolutely love that. I love drawing and painting, and I'm starting to like try to dabble into like use new stuff, but I like I could be having like the worst day ever, and either I go to write because I love writing as well, or I just go to like draw and paint and color and like all the things, and it makes me like those stress levels really go down. So like it's really good from like a mental health aspect, which I'm huge advocate for too.
I wholeheartedly agree. I journal every single day, or if not every single day, definitely every weekday, but I try to do it on the weekends too, because for me, starting the day off with having a physical manifestation for your thoughts, it helps you, when you look back on old entries, it helps you look at and notice patterns in your life, which is interesting because certain times of the year you'll notice, hey, I wrote about that like 4 years in a row around this time. So you see significant little patterns and things, and it helps you remember not just your day-to-day, well, today I did this, but the feelings you have around certain things and certain important milestones. It's a really important practice that I highly recommend to everyone. Just, and no one sees it, so you could be 100% honest and raw and vulnerable and just not have to filter yourself because it's just you.
100%. I am behind that so much. And I just kind of have one other question, and then I can definitely pass the baton back to Leslie or Monty, whoever would like to go next. And this is kind of going into the wrestling world a little bit. And it's kind of like a two-part question. So I guess the first part of the question is, what has been your favorite and least favorite part about wrestling? And then the second question is, we just got done covering, we're in our tribal chief era of the Roman Reigns episode in our podcast, and we just got through talking about his epic return at SummerSlam 2020, and we covered it all the way up to his match with Jey Uso in the Hell in a Cell I Quit match. What does that match mean to you as a fan and as a family member?
Okay, so let me pick this apart. Let me start with the first part of the question. What I love most about professional wrestling is the way it brings multiple generations of people together for one common interest. How you can get great grandparents and their great grandkids loving the same thing and bonding over something. And also the way it brings people together from all over the world, from every walk of life, especially from the wrestling, like from a wrestler perspective and a wrestling family perspective, the way that people have come from literally everywhere on earth to train at my dad's school. It brings people into your life that you never in a million years would have imagined. People from places that you've never even heard of before, and then they just become a part of your world and a part of your family. And I love the camaraderie and the brotherhood that does exist in wrestling, because it is there. The thing I don't like about wrestling is the few bad apples that kind of ruin it for everyone. You have people who can be extremely greedy and selfish and self-centered, and instead of being a team player and trying to help everyone else succeed, a lot of people in this industry are very cutthroat, and they'll try to slice your Achilles tendons just so that they can step over you. And you know, there's an ugly side to the business, but there's also a really beautiful side. So really the people in the industry, whether from a wrestling perspective or a fan perspective, really kind of make the experience for you. So if you're surrounded by good people who truly respect it and love it and try to make it a better thing, that's a wonderful thing. If you have people who disrespect wrestling or don't appreciate it or are only in it for themselves, you're going to see the difference. And as far as the... Oh, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I was just agreeing. Yeah, I was just saying, yeah.
Okay. And now, the Hell in the Cell match, was that the one where Dad and Uncle Sika gave Joe the Ulafala? Okay.
Yeah.
So, my mom, my husband, and I were at that show. We were backstage. And I remember earlier in the day, we arrived, and we were back there with Paul Heyman and the Usos and Joe. And what was funny was Joe was trying to explain everything to my dad and uncle. And they, especially Uncle Sika, poor thing, they were getting so angry and so upset. Like, you boys shouldn't be fighting. Your family, the Samoan people are going to throw a fit. You're going to cause wars over this stuff. And I just remember, like, they were just, the three of them were just looking at each other like, Dad, Uncle, it's okay. It's a story. It's part of the show. You know this. You've been in the business for 100 years. But it was just, I'll never forget the way Dad and Uncle were getting really worked up about it until right before they got out there. And then I remember the way Dad described it, like standing out there in that building full of fans and the, it was just... It was a really emotional thing for him and Uncle. You could see it as they're looking out. Like Dad said, he was trying not to look around too much and just focus, but it was just a beautiful experience to have that and be part of that. And I, for one, sitting backstage watching it, I was so proud of them and so proud of this whole family. Just what came out of Peter Maivia training my dad, and so that he would stop getting arrested all the time. And then Dad training Uncle Sika, and then them training their sons and their nephews and their everybody in the family down to today, what we have now, what it has become, what the family has become. It's absolutely mind-blowing to me that literally you cannot turn on any WWE programming without seeing the family. And it just goes to show that, like, my dad and my uncle and my great uncle, they paved a road that they had no idea was going to go this far and this deep. And now it's like the most powerful time ever for our family. If you look at it, like, we're everywhere. And from Dad's generation to the Head Shrinkers and Yokozuna, and then into Umanga and all of, like, to where it is now, it's just been really, really beautiful. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, because I felt it in my bones on that first Netflix Raw when Joe won that match and Dwayne put the Ulafala on him, I'm sitting there like I did not think I was going to cry. And I'm sitting there full blown, just blubbering because I could feel their spirits and I could feel how immensely proud they were. I could just see them looking down thinking, brother, look what we made. Look what we did. And it just gave me goosebumps. And that kicked me in the gut a little bit with the emotions, but it was beautiful. And it's just seeing how far the family has come and how this is just the beginning of this new era. There's so many more of them in the ranks. It's like we could put, and since the 1960s, I think, since Peter Maivia, there's never been a single time in WWE history where at least one member of my family wasn't actively part of the company.
I noticed that.
It's amazing to me. Even now, I sit there and I'm like, geez, there's never been a point where someone in my family wasn't part of WWE. It's incredible. And now there's more of them than ever.
Right. And with that match, like for me, that Hell in a Cell match, it was the way the story, the way Joshua and the way Joe was telling that story. I literally was yelling at Joe and stop, and then he the part to where he like does this little act where he's crying and then wipes the tear off his chest. I'm like, you sly conniving man. But it's like I loved it. And then like you said, when he went and your father and uncle, his father put the ulafala on him. That was, you could tell that was, and the way he embraced and they embraced was so beautiful. And you could tell, even though it's in the show, you could still tell. I feel that moment was I felt like it was organic, and you could see just how the pride and just everything, and just how Joe even reverenced them, so much. Like I feel like you saw. And I always say this, there's certain things where you see more, especially with, say, for instance, with Joe. I'm just going to use him, for example. You see so many instances where you see Joe a little more in the Roman character, especially used to. And I feel like that was one of those moments.
It was so beautiful. That footage, that moment with them behind him, and he raised that belt up, and I was just like, oh, wow. What a gorgeous passing of the torch moment. Just absolutely. I'm so glad that they got to be there and be part of that, because it was incredible. And I was sitting backstage watching it. My husband and I were sitting at the table. Big Show was next to us, and every eye backstage was just on that screen. And everyone was just like, it was dead silent. Like we were all just mesmerized by that moment. And then we all went in the back and were hanging out with Paul Heyman, and he and my dad were very, very close. And for decades, like since the 80s, Paul Heyman and my dad were like inseparable. So they had a lot of fun reminiscing, and it was such a good, beautiful night all around. It was a very special night for the family.
Monty, do you have anything?
Just to give credit where credit is due. Longtime wrestling fan. I have never seen something like that ever. And at that level, I was going through every single emotion I could possibly go through. And at the very end, I was just like, what did I just witness? This was amazing. But no, just especially going through a lot in my own personal life and everything. And my father had passed away around that time, and so it was like you just need an escape. And just to have that, it's like this was amazing. So as a longtime wrestling fan, and as somebody who has watched your family for as long as I've been alive, and honestly, Vale, we're the same age, so for as long as I've been alive, thank you because that took me out of something that was really, really sad. And that brought me to realize this is why we watch this. This is why we enjoy this product. So thank you. And thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough, not just for the immense respect that you've given to my family since I first acknowledged the dynasty. What made you stand out to me was the fact that you were so professional and so respectful. And not a lot of people out there, especially in wrestling, not a lot of people have that level of respect and honor. And you've just always been so incredibly supportive. And just, I can't ever thank you guys enough for doing what you're doing, because I don't think there's any other podcast group or page that's so specifically dedicated to the Anoa'i, Fatu, Maivia, Johnson families. So, and the fact that you're all women doing it, that's also unique and different and special. So just keep doing what you're doing. Keep up the amazing work, and your content is top notch. So, I mean, I've been following you guys for a while, and it's like, wow, they really know their stuff. I remember I randomly popped in when you were doing one of those live, I just popped in for fun, and then it's like, let me just stay here for a while.
Was our first one. That was our first trivia night ever. That was the first one. We sit there and we talk about it all the time. We're like, that was really, really fun. Do y'all think she might pop in on another one? I don't know. But it was really, really fun. It was really amazing to have you there, and for you to give us some insight. And also, thank you for giving us a hint on what was going to happen that night.
I gave you a hint. I don't remember.
You secretly told us that Roman was coming back that night.
Because you were like, just not verbatim, but it was like, just wait, something big is going to happen. And I remember texting Monty in group chat. I was like, he's coming back.
That was the one we were also going, did she just drop a hint? She just dropped an Easter egg to us.
What?
I mean, I never said he was going to come back. I mean, it could have been something completely different that was big. You know,
but that's how he took it. So we just went.
It just so happened that it was completely fact that he did come back. So it worked out.
Because we're sitting there and we're just like, okay, he's coming back, isn't he? No. She's probably talking about something else. Don't even worry about it. It's like, no. And then that music hit, and I was like,
I remember your reaction. I saw your video and I was laughing, because it's like, now that is an honest reaction right there. That is pure, unadulterated shock and joy. And I'm like, we need more of that. We need more of that genuine emotion. Just, it was awesome. It was really fun to watch your reaction. It was great.
Lauren?
Huh?
You good? You got anything else to add?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I remember what she said now. Like, we were talking about SummerSlam, and
she said if there wasn't a roof.
Yeah, she said she asked if there was, she asked about the roof on the building. She said, is there a roof on the stadium? Because if there isn't, it's going to be blown off by the end of the night. That's what she said.
Yeah. All righty, girls. Awesome so far. So, though, you good? You got any more questions? Or anything you want to ask?
Not off the top of my head. Again, I just, sending so much love over to you, Vale, and your entire family. Thank you guys for literally everything. As Monty has said, thank you for everything. And, I'm glad to hear, you really like our stuff, because I know we all try to really pride ourselves in making sure that everything is accurate with you guys, because we don't ever want to be dishonest or not tell a lie or anything like that. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. That's what makes you guys stand out, because the accuracy and the dedication to getting the facts. I mean, it's top notch.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So, our next little segment, we have a fourth ATD member. Her name is Leslie as well. She goes by Terry on X, but her little girl is wanting to get into the wrestling media business, so she's starting her own little show called In Josie's Corner. So. So Josie has submitted some questions to us. Terry wasn't able to be with us. Josie's actually in dance. So
Oh,
as we see,
wonderful.
so Josie's first question is, who do you see leading the family wrestling wise in 10 years?
Hmm. That's a really good question. In 10 years, let's see. I think by then, maybe. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I know Lance is starting to kind of
Mhm.
make some noise out there. I
Right.
think by that point, probably you're looking at your Solo, your Jacob, your Lance. But even maybe some of their kids might be starting to get into the business by then, because there is no shortage of Anoa'i children,
Right.
and wrestling is always an option. So I have a feeling there's going to be a whole new generation in 10 years that's going to be kind of rising up through the ranks. But Joe might still very well be the top of the pack, but we just don't know. 10 years is a long time, and anything can happen.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. So, of course, like I said, she dances, and she said, and we had shared with her that you dance some as well. So she wants to know, when did you begin your dance training, and what is your favorite genre and dance?
Well, I first started when I was 2 years old. My mom had me in tap, jazz, and ballet when I was living in Staten Island, New York. After that, when we moved, I went through a very, very long period with no dance. And then I did 9 years steadily of belly dance when we moved to Florida. And that was a wonderful time in my life. I still every once in a while will perform, but we started getting into ballroom and Latin dance about a year before the wedding. Julio actually found a studio in Dr. Phillips, which was Fred Astaire Dance Studio. And we went to do their introductory class just to see if we liked it. By the time we were done with that first 45 minutes, we just looked at each other and it's like, yeah, we're signing up for the whole works forever. We're never leaving this place. So it's been almost 5 years now that we've been doing ballroom and Latin. My favorite is definitely Argentine tango. I am a humongous fan of the Argentine tango because, unlike any other type of dance, it has no real rules. There is no real like step sequence segment. It's very much a free flow give and take of energy. And I love the American style tango. I really enjoy salsa and cha-cha, rumba, swing.
Samba.
I've done very, very little samba. The music's really fun.
It's fun, but it's like, for me, samba is just difficult. I'm over
It
here and
is a workout.
I'm like, I can dance, but I can't move that fast. Like, come on,
Yeah,
man. Give me a break at the steps.
Yeah. I've done a little bit of waltz, a little bit of foxtrot, but I think, I would say salsa, cha-cha, rumba, swing, tango, Argentine tango. Those are my favorites.
Awesome. Awesome. So with Josie, there is this video that went viral of Josie. She was at a show, of course, with her parents, front row. And Solo was in the ring, and she was she was just heckling him, giving him a hard time, calling him a chicken. I don't know. First off, have you seen that video of the little girl heckling?
No.
Yes. So this was Josie. So, well, since you haven't seen it, you guys search it or ask him about it. I definitely, he would probably get tickled. I could almost see that reaction. But it was a little girl in the front row. Her name is like I said, her name's Josie, and she was like calling him a chicken, and he was interacting with her, and she was just giving him what for. It's hilarious. It's cute. But if you had seen it, she was wanting to know, what did you think of the video where I heckle Solo?
I'm probably going to get a really good laugh about it. But the thing that always kills me about calling someone a chicken, when you think about it, have you ever seen a chicken afraid of anything? chickens
Right.
are very gutsy, brave birds. Like, I've never seen a scared chicken in my life. They are fearless. They are not afraid of anything.
That is true. And it's like
Right?
my mom was
Chickens
like
are
my mom.
weirdly brave.
Yeah, she was here. She said an old rooster, especially. Yes.
But I
Um,
definitely will have to watch that video because I'm sure I'm going to get a really good laugh out of it, especially if he was reacting and heckling back at her.
he was, yeah, they were like interacting with each other, and it was hilarious. It was so funny. But he's something to the effect of like, "How am I a chicken? I'm whipping his tail," or something like that. I was laughing. I was like, "Get him, Josie, get him."
I
But
love any moment where any of the wrestlers will break character. I watched a compilation recently of R-Truth getting everybody to just lose it. Like these real serious moments, and R-Truth will just do or say something, and they cannot keep it together. And admittedly, I was laughing through that whole video. So I love a moment where somebody just has to quick turn away from the camera. And of course, the famous Sami Zayn with the Usi thing. The way
yes.
that reaction had me absolutely dying. It was priceless because you see them all you see the eyes, and it's like they have to look away, they have to turn around, and I love the fun stuff. I really, really like the fun.
That really had me laughing, that particular incident, because you see Jay kind of try to look away, and Roman's like, no, come back over here.
And then Jay, they chuckled for a minute, and I'm just like, oh God, they just broke.
Live TV, of course.
Mm-hmm. But with them three, I say you get Jimmy and Jay and Roman, or in character or out of character, in real life as Joe and Joshua and Jonathan. I'm sure them three are a trip anyway. From what I understand growing up and what I've read and what they talk about, I'm sure that's a crazy trio.
Well, Joe was always the more serious one, the very mature one, whereas the twins were just absolute lunatics growing up. Like when they were kids, I remember they were fighting in the living room, just rolling around and brawling with each other. And one of them put a hole in the wall with their foot when they were rolling. And I'm just like, well, I told you to knock it off. Yeah, their dad was not happy because they were just getting ready to move. They were packing stuff up, and now he has to patch this huge hole in the wall that this stupid kid put his foot through. They were always running wild, those two. Like they've always been the really like off the wall, funny, uncontrollable ones, where Joe was very level and quiet and mature. So it's an interesting mix of personalities for sure.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Let's see. I think that's all she had, and so I'm going to pass the proverbial baton over to Monty.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just going to get Zia Moore Evelyn's question out the way. That is my daughter's name. I'm gonna go get her question out the way.
Okay.
And so she wants to know, how did you get so good at art? She is a young artist, and her style is cartooning. I've already sent you what she does. She was so adamant about you seeing her art. So,
well, being that she's 10, she's got a good start. I would say the best way to get good at anything is just to do it as often as possible. Practice and develop your own style. I mean, it's great when you're getting started to kind of work with familiar styles and kind of figure out what you like as an artist. But I always say, if someone can look at something that you've created and say, that's Vale's art, because there's this something that's your own personal style that you develop. But really just practice, draw as often as you possibly can, draw things that you're not familiar with, draw weird shapes. Like for me, as most artists can probably agree, we hate hands, we hate feet, and we hate weird shaped things like cups or anything like rounded with a lid. For some reason, it's so hard for me to draw a teacup because it's like it just looks weird. So it's just a lot of practice and a lot of looking at it, drawing it, looking at it, drawing it, like really taking your time and getting the shapes right. And don't be afraid to use that eraser, because your eraser will be your best friend. And just when you're just getting started and when you're practicing, nobody's going to see it but you. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. And many times I'll be doing a really nice sketch and I'll hate the face and I'll erase it 15 times because the nose looks weird or one of the eyes is too big or the lips are off center. And I'm like, oh, so I'm sitting there erasing it and redoing it until I like the way it looks. And then it's like, okay. And then by then the paper is half worn through. So it's like, well, at least I'm going to add paint to it so you can't tell. But I think everyone goes through that kind of cartoon phase of their art. And
there's no error in art.
I didn't say there were any errors in art. I said, my husband's listening to the podcast, and I'm like, wait, I just heard myself. But he agrees that there's no errors in art. Like, well, as of course the almighty, wonderful Bob Ross always said, there are no mistakes, there are happy accidents.
Mhm.
But just keep practicing, keep doing it. That's really the only way to get better at literally anything.
It's
Just
the one thing
draw
that I'm
as
telling you right
possible.
now, she is in there drawing as we speak. And so
Perfect.
I encourage it for her. We have a cousin that's actually in college for art. And
Oh,
so
nice.
she wants to become an artist. But I'm like, you also want to be a veterinarian. And she's like, art will be my side hustle. And I'm like, okay, ma'am. All right. She's about to be 10 going on 25. So
Right. Well, that
she
was
knows
one
what she
thing.
wants.
That's really smart advice, because one thing my mom always told me when I was like really, really determined to be an actress, and obviously that never went past a certain level, but she said, I don't care if you pursue acting, go for it, do what you got to do, but you got to have a plan B. You absolutely have to have a plan B. Pursue your dreams, but pay the bills. And that way you're never going to depend on just one thing. And then what if that thing doesn't work out? Then what? Then it's like, well, now I have no idea what I want to do with my life and I'm lost. And this was my only passion, my only thing. I can't tell you how many independent wrestlers and wrestling students, their only real dream is to wrestle, but they got to pay tuition. So it's like they all have regular jobs for years. Some of them keep their regular job forever. And they still wrestle, they still live their dream, they still travel and do what they want to do. But unless you're at a really, really significant level or you're a really exceptional talent, wrestling's not going to pay the bills.
Mhm.
So until you get to a point where you are making enough money in whatever industry you're in, where you have 6 months of savings built up just from that passion or that career that you're doing, then you can possibly consider, all right, I'm doing really well. I can leave my day job and make this my full-time thing. But the problem, and particularly with wrestling, you could be on top of the world. You could have the dream career, and then you get injured.
Mhm.
And you might get a horrible injury that keeps you out of the ring for 6-8 months. And then what? And if you're not doing WWE level wrestling and you're on the independents and you're doing really well and you have a great name and you're wrestling every single weekend multiple times, and then you get injured. And I will tell you from much personal experience, most wrestlers do not have health insurance.
Mhm.
So if they get injured, it's a real problem because they're going to have medical bills for the rest of their lives. So one thing I tell everyone I talk to, well, not everyone, but most people I talk to about this type of thing, I tell them while you're at your youngest and your healthiest, get life insurance.
Mhm.
People think of life insurance as like, oh, that just means, it's like, no, but listen, if you get it while you're at your youngest and healthiest, the rate will stay the same. If you try to get it later on when you're in really bad shape or you have a pre-existing condition, you either might not get coverage at all or the rates will be astronomical. So that's another thing. It's like, have health insurance, have life insurance, because if something happens to you and you don't have life insurance, that's going to be a huge problem when your family is going to have to figure out a way to pay for either your bills or, unfortunately, if you pass away doing what you love, your family's going to have to pay for your funeral. So while you're young and while you're healthy, get life insurance.
Mhm.
It's like it's one of those things that it's a grown-up conversation that a lot of young people don't like thinking about. However, it's going to happen to everybody someday. And the unfortunate thing with my dad was he had term life insurance, which the policy expired on his 80th birthday. On his 80th birthday was when he found out just how bad his heart was. So literally from November 21st of 2023 all the way until his dying day, it was doctors and hospitals and rehabilitation centers and surgeries. And it was really, really sad, but it's like, it's a harsh reality that you always have to be prepared for. And I'm a professional what-ifer. I'm always that person, thinking of every possible worst case scenario. So I like to be prepared and have like some money socked away for an emergency and have like 3 to 5 contingency plans in case something goes wrong in life. It's always better to be prepared. And even when horrible things catch you off guard, never let yourself be completely caught off guard. Have a game plan for any eventuality. Man, how did we get into this dark topic all of a sudden?
Well,
Like,
when you said contingent life insurance, my heart fell into my chest. I was like, oh goodness, no. Because I've heard of that before, and I'm just like, don't do that. No, that's not good. But no. My mom is one of those who tells me you got to plan for death like you plan for life. So make sure that you have something.
And a few weeks before my dad passed, one of his very young wrestlers who had a really promising future, he was doing great things, 21 years old, died unexpectedly. 21. Nobody expects a perfectly healthy, active, vibrant, talented 21-year-old to just die with no warning. He wasn't sick. He just died. And that was very eye-opening for a lot of people, especially a lot of wrestlers, because they're like, this could happen to anyone at any time. And I guess part of being raised in the Samoan culture with such a gigantic family, we were no stranger to death of all ages. I mean, my brother-in-law, Gary, was only 36 when he passed. Rodney was only 34. So, and Eki was young too. He was in his 30s. So we were no strangers to very young, tragic passings. And so I guess I've always had that thing in my head where I've never been afraid of death myself. It's just that fear of losing someone who you really, truly love and who you're very close to. That's where all the fear comes from. But as far as myself, it's like, I'm not afraid of it because I've seen so much of it in my life that it's like, I don't see it as anything to fear. But it's something you do need to think about and be prepared for. Like you said, prepare for death like you prepare for life.
Well, like, technically, that's not my quote. That's my mom's quote. She's the one who tells me that all the time. So we're going to give that.
I gotta say, I agree with your mom.
Here, I'm going to give her credit for that one. They know I have a very strange relationship with my mother. I tend to do that. I'm going to give her that credit.
Well, it's true, though. And the thing is, you never know. From minute to minute, you never know. So it's better to have a plan. That way, like, if it happens and you're completely unprepared, you're not going to be haunting your family because it's like, you made them do my makeup like that?
Exactly.
Have you ever even seen me in your life? You put me in that outfit? Are you crazy? Like, it's like, that's not what I would have wanted for my ceremony. Come on.
Right?
Exactly.
It's a weird thing to think about, but, it's something to think about. Things you never think you have to think about. It's like, just kind of have a plan in your head because you just don't know.
Right. Okay, we're going to go to something much lighter. Yes. Let's go ahead and let's talk about something light. Okay, so I do want to ask you another question, and I've noticed this a lot when it comes to even I saw Jacob did it, Paul does it, Jimmy even did it when he returned. What does the praying hands mean?
I think it just connects to their faith, because the family is very strongly Christian almost every Samoan is very strongly Christian. So I think it's just a symbol of gratitude and just counting their blessings.
Because whenever I see them do it, I'm like, what is it like? Are you guys praying to him? Is that what's going on? I don't understand. But that's just what I was thinking. I was like, what does the praying hands mean? Because whenever I see Jacob do it, he says, "I love you, Solo," and I'm just like, I have to know what that means. It's got to be an interesting tie there.
I think it's gratitude because of each one of the family members kind of doing their part to lift the family as a whole.
Oh, now that makes sense. Now that makes sense. Now I can say I know where that's from. Thank you so much for that one. And my next one is going to be really just a writer question, because I know you are a writer.
Yes.
And it's really two parts. The first part is, how did you become self-published?
Well, this is a funny story. I was actually on my way to, what was it? It was a pilot for a TV shoot in Philadelphia. And I hired a driver to take me there because it's like, I'm not making that Philly trip. I don't feel like dying today. So of all things, the driver, he was Greek and he had just lost his wife. And we started talking about writing because he said he wrote poetry. I'm like, oh, I write. I do poetry and short stories. This driver was the one who told me about Lulu.com. And he said that he self-published a book through there. And I'm like, okay, I'll look into it. And I did. And now all 9 of my books are self-published through Lulu.com, because initially when I first had my poetry and short story collection manuscript together, I mailed it out to at least 10 to 15 publishing companies. And I either got rejection letters or no reply. So I'm like, am I just going to sit here and let this thing disappear? No, I'm going to make this thing happen. I'm going to bring it into the world somehow. So then he told me about Lulu.com and I'm like, okay. So I guess part of my personal philosophy is, if you hear no enough times, stop looking for validation from anywhere and just do it yourself. Whether it's, like in my case, it was writing. I wanted to publish a book. Nobody would publish my book. So I'm like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And I did. And I mean, with self-publishing, it's a lot of time to push and promote and try to get people's eyes on the book, because you don't have the luxury of a press kit from a big publishing company. But if you buy a couple of copies and have them on the table at events and talk to people about them, post about them every so often, it's going to get attention. And it was the same with when I moved to Florida. I auditioned and for a bunch of different things and nothing really panned out. So it's like, okay, I still want to be doing something that involves creativity and passion and self-expression. And then I found belly dance. And the nice thing about belly dance, 1, you don't need a partner. 2, you could completely create the dance right there on the spot. I'm really big with improv. If I have to remember steps and sequences, I'm like, nope. It goes in one brain cell and out the other. But the freedom of being able to just create with your body, like that kind of filled the gap that was missing after I stopped acting. And then I've always kind of done that. Whenever something just kind of stops being productive or stops, kind of flatlines or stalls, it's like, all right, on to the next thing. What am I going to do next? I'm going to create this craft side business and I'm going to, become a mermaid. And just whenever something becomes stagnant, it's like, all right, I'll either do it myself or on to the next thing. And the nice thing, you could always go back. If so, you could put something on hold for 5-10 years, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, an opportunity just popped up. I can go right back and do this again. So it's that freedom of knowing that you could have 100 people say no, and then it's like, all right, I'm going to do it myself. So self-publishing is a great thing. And I like lulu.com because, well, it's the only one I've ever used. So of course I like it, but it's very easy, very user-friendly. They talk you through every single step of the process, and it served me well. And I've helped my mom publish a few books through there. She wrote a children's book that I illustrated. And so it's really easy to use, and you can connect directly to Barnes and Noble, the Nook, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it worked out well, because if you're trying to spend 5 years sending your thing out to a publishing company, that's 5 years you could have self-published and pushed it yourself. So time is always of the essence, and just do it yourself.
Monty, real quick, this is a good point, a good spot. I want to do something for her before you ask your next question, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. So speaking of your books, we're gonna help you out. I have got 2 of your books. So she just told you guys where to go. You could go to lulu.com, but this is Growing Up Wrestling.
I love that picture so much.
And the stories in here, I laugh. The one with Gene, where he
Gene's sister.
and how he would didn't wait around for Pops to
no
Pops.
He dropped me off at the house, and I've never seen that man run so fast. He's like, okay, bye, Pops, and he was gone. Like, wow.
And then
wow.
There's another one in there, a story about your brother, about Afa Jr., but I can't remember exactly what it was. If he had gotten, I don't know what we were saying, y'all, like the head, from like the salon or whatever, and was, I guess.
Oh, he used to chase me around in the back. I was so mad at him. More often than not, he was tormenting me in some way as we were growing up. But he loved that stupid mannequin head from the salon next door, and he would run through the hallways chasing me with it, and it's like
all good.
Fun times.
Oh, I'm sorry. But guys, you can find many other cool stories like that in her book, Growing Up Wrestling. And Miss Vale, one more, and then I'm going to let Monty finish her question here. I have Wisdom Domination, Real Life Wisdom, Reflections, and Art.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't got into this one that much yet. I've read a little bit of it, but guys, it's really good. It's really good. Some good advice and some good quotes. Motivated. So. But yes. All right, sis, I'm going to let you continue. I just think it would be a good opportunity to help her promote.
Well, I mean, she just animated. Vale, you just saved my life. I have a novel that I have been working on for 10 years. And I have been just trying. I'm like, let me just get this out there. I'm like, I don't care if it's garbage. I just want it out there in the universe. And that way it's just there. And so for me, it's like, ooh, I finally have a way of doing this now.
Mm-hmm.
But also, this is going to tie into another question. I'm a writer. And as a writer, I notice that my characters tend to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell me what's going on. And all I just do is just put it down. And so a lot of writers, they do an outline and everything else. And personally, for me, I can do it. I mean, even when it came to doing this, I said, Leslie, I can do an outline, but I'm better off just flying by the seat of my pants, moment to moment. And so the question I want to ask you is, are you a pantser or are you a planner?
When it comes to writing characters, I feel like I'm just a conduit. They're going to do what they want to do, and I just got to write it down fast enough before they dash off the page and do what they're going to do anyway. So I think in that sense, I'm more of a pantser, as you call it. I love that. That's really cute. But because if you plan things out too much, I feel like you stifle the creative process. And in my life, I am a fanatical planner. Like, I am calendars, I am to-do lists, but when it comes to writing and creating, I'm completely free flow. And the characters might start off doing one thing, and then I'm like, nah, they're going to do this now. And it's the same with painting, but the creative process is, I feel like I'm just a conduit for the creative process. The characters are going to come through, and they are going to do what is organically true to those characters. And if I try to push them to do something that I want them to do, but they might not necessarily vibe with, I'm like, no, the character, it's not going to write well. Like, you're going to write it and it's like, it feels inauthentic to the character. So it's like, well, we're just going to follow the characters and see what they want to do in this situation.
Yes, it's like, I feel the same way. It's like going down a rabbit hole. It's like, I'm Alice. Let me just go down this rabbit hole. Let me just see what they're going to talk about. And then they wind up telling you something. And I'm like, now you didn't tell me this. But, and it's a strange thing to say to people. And it's like, it's one of those things where I go, like, they're their own people.
Yes.
They're fictional, but they are their own people. And so they will tell you things about yourself that you don't know. Mm-hmm. And then you're just like, oh, I didn't know you knew that. I didn't know that about you. Okay, that's cool. Interesting. You had a chicken named Wednesday. Awesome. But yeah, there's a character that told me she had a chicken named Wednesday. And I'm just like, okay, this is a weird story, but I'll listen to it. But just to hear that from you and hear you say, when it comes to characters, I feel the same way. And for me personally, to sit down and to plan, it's like, I can't do this. They have to tell me what's going on. I can't sit there and I can't cut it. If they're telling me something, I'm listening to them and I'm just putting it in words.
I absolutely agree. The same process I have, because the characters they become like little living entities that are just, and it's going to drive me crazy. I read a book, or maybe it was a short story in a book, but I can't remember who wrote it or what the title of it was, but it was a book about characters in a book. And when the book is closed and no one's reading it, these characters just go about their own lives and do their own thing, and they can cross over into different chapters and do what they want to do. But as soon as someone opens the book and start reading, it's like, places everyone, they have to run back and get into like exactly where they were when the person stopped reading before. And that book or story, I wish I could remember, but that concept made me kind of stop and be like, wow, they really do have their own lives. And then that kind of made me feel guilty for leaving a story unfinished for weeks, months, years at a time. It's like, these poor people are standing in this position for 10 years. Like, I gotta write something so they can start moving again.
It's like, okay, I just finished I just got done editing book 1. There are 4 books that I'm working on, and they're all the same thing. And I just got done editing the last chapter of book 1. And I'm like, I started working on book 2. Book 4 is already in the can. Book 5, I'm like, I'll get to that one later. Book 3 is really, really sad. I got to get to a really, really dark place. But book 1 is done. And now I'm just like, okay, I really need to get on book 2. And I really need to be able to just tell you what they're doing next. They need to be able to talk to me and tell me. Because right now it's like, hey, we got to tell you what happens next. You will not believe this. So thank you so much. Leslie, you have the floor.
Oh, okay. Okay, so oh gosh, I don't want to take up too much time because I had a few questions, but so I know you had shared with us that you teach and that you're a special education teacher. So I'm basically an autism mom. I have a 12-year-old son who's been diagnosed with ASD, diagnosed when he was 5. So, and in our experience, we've had some awesome SPED teachers. Some I wish, as parents, we can be kind of overly critical. I get it. They try their best, and each child is different, and they have several children in the classroom. But I digress. Anyways, I was just wondering, like, why did you choose special education? What drew you to special education?
Well, it actually kind of found me. When we first moved down to Florida, I was doing long distance medical transcription for the doctor I used to work for back in Pennsylvania. And doing that for hours at a time, my wrists were killing me because I was starting to get like those carpal tunnel symptoms. And then it's like, I got to find a local job where I can be out of the house. And my mom got a job at that school as a teacher assistant. And then she was there for about 2 years before I decided I'm like, let me just go ahead and apply. I've been here 3 times as a volunteer. I'm like, I need a job. So I went and applied, and of course the principal knew me and loved me and hired me right away. And at first I was a TA for 9 years before I became a teacher. And I knew it's like, I am going to stay in this job until I retire. Like, I love what I do. And the first class that the principal put me in was a severe behavior class. And in the first week of the job, I think I got 4 injuries. But I'm like, this is fun. I like this. And you just fall in love with the kids and you learn so much from them. I feel like they teach you infinitely more than you could ever teach them. And it's a really, really awesome thing when you're able to build that bond and that relationship with these students of all ages and all abilities. And especially the ones who are nonverbal, when you can understand what it is they want and they need. And especially when they're in the midst of a really hard, like, tantrum or fit where they're just so overloaded and so upset and they need something, but they don't know how to articulate it. When you have that intuitive sense of the kid and you're like, I know what they need. And then you offer it to them and they just look at you with like, thank you for understanding what this is all about. And I mean, I've been there since 2012. It's been 12 years. It's kind of crazy. And this is my 4th year as a teacher now. And my current classroom, almost all of my students are either fully blind or visually impaired. And most of them are nonverbal, but they're my heart. I love these kids so much. And the thought of doing anything else as a day job, I can't imagine, because I get to have fun and I get to laugh and I get to be dramatic and act and sing and be goofy and just I have so much fun on that job every single day. And to have the love of those students, there's nothing like that. Like, I can't imagine myself sitting in corporate America in an office. It's like, this would be soul sucking, especially after all these years of being a teacher, getting to do art projects and really teach them interesting things and see them get it. And it's nothing beats that. To me, nothing beats that.
Wow, that is awesome. And it's like, I did some substitute teaching myself for a little bit. And one of my favorite classes to go into was a K-5 SPED class. And I know we shouldn't always have our favorites, but I had this awesome little young lady, and she was nonverbal, but I could go behind her and say, hey, and she'd be like, and I'd say, you know who this is? And she'd turn around and it's like she recognized Ms. Davis, that smile. And the teacher said, she's not like that with many others. Even the ones that are here, it takes her a little moment to warm up to them. She said, but she just took to you. I said, well, I'm taking to her because she's just a sweetheart. But she was just this little diva, but they were amazing. And I agree with you so much that it's fun, and to see them get it, like to see her get something and master a skill. It's just awesome and fulfilling, even just being in a substitute teacher position. So thank you. And thank you for choosing that and, following in that, because like I said, we need good SPED teachers, all across the country. And thank you for doing that for our kids. I guess my next question, so I'm going to switch it kind of back toward like culture and wrestling a little bit. Unfortunately, people, when your Uncle Sika passed, people did think, put out pictures that shouldn't have been put out in videos. But on one of those, I did notice something that I had a question about. I noticed like they were wearing, some of the men were wearing like a different color ulafala. So I've seen the red one, of course, with the storyline and it, but I was wondering what that it was like a beige color ulafala. So I didn't know if that was any different. So I was wondering if you knew, if you could share with us what that particular piece of is for.
I think the beige looking ones are just the undyed, unpainted ones. That's like the natural color, but the red ones have a higher significance. Red is one of those, like, I think, like, I'm not 100% sure, but that's just my gut feeling, is that the red ones are for like the highest chiefs. But I may be wrong, because I don't know enough about ulafala to kind of give a fully informed explanation. Right. But I think I think the color has to do with like the level of chief that you are, because in the Samoan culture is very, very deep and multi-layered, and there's so much to it. And I think that a high chief can wear the red one, but again, I may not be 100% correct on this, so I don't want to give you a fully authorized answer if I'm not correct, but I think the red ones are a higher ranking, but it could just be that the beige ones are just not painted or dyed or however it works. So I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay. So I noticed earlier you had mentioned High Chief Peter Maivia, and we know that the dynasty, the two families basically connected through Reverend Anoa'i. So have you heard, or if so, do you mind to share? Like, do you know how Reverend Anoa'i come to meet High Chief Peter Maivia? Or have y'all heard that story? I was like, I gotta ask, because that would be interesting, because that essentially started the whole dynasty. So that's why I'm asking.
See, I never got the full story about all that. I just know that my grandfather, who was Reverend Afa Anoa'i, I just know that they joined forces as a family, and that was it. And then they just became this gigantic force. And I mean, my grandfather was a super high up reverend, and what was funny is he wanted my dad to follow in his footsteps and go into the church and become a reverend. But yeah, that wasn't going to happen. My dad was the bad boy. I don't mean a bad boy. I mean the bad boy. He got dishonorably discharged from the Marines for some and it's hard to get dishonorably discharged from the Marines, but he was bad. He did some really, really questionable life choices in his youth. But then when wrestling kind of found him, he always credited wrestling for saving his life. And especially his uncle, like, that saved him, that gave him a purpose and kind of made him stop doing stupid young people stuff. And many years later, my mom told my grandfather, she said, in a roundabout way, he did follow in your footsteps. Through wrestling kind of became his church. He became this shepherd figure, gathering all these lost sheep from all over the world. And it's like, he did follow in your footsteps. He is like a reverend to these kids. They look up to him as an authority figure and a father figure. So he was really proud about that when he heard it put that way.
Right.
So I remember that. That was in 1993 or 4 in Las Vegas at a big family reunion.
Awesome. And I guess my final question is, I had seen not long ago, I think you had posted a music video, and it was the Heart of a Warrior Part 2. So my first question is that the first music video you had been a part of? And my second question, I guess, onto that is, what was that experience like? And
it was not my first music video. I think it was actually maybe my 4th or 5th. When I was first getting into acting, a lot of the auditions I found were for music videos. So, I mean, I never had a major part in one. I was mainly background and extra, but Heart of a Warrior 2 was a whole different story. Montesi reached out because we'd known him for quite a few years, and he's super cool. And he asked us if we would be part of it, because he said, he asked everybody he could get a hold of in the family, and Mom and I were the only ones that agreed to do it. So I'm really grateful we did, because that was a really fun shoot. And like, I didn't know what to expect. I'm like, all right, I don't know anything about what the video entails, but we just kind of flowed with it and rolled with it. And it was quick. It was a quick shoot. I think we were there no more than 2 hours. And we got everything we needed. And it was fun getting to kind of get rough and tumble with these big dudes. And there's one part where I pushed this guy really hard. And then I have to remind myself, it's like, wait, this guy's not in the wrestling business. I can hurt people. Because I've been told that I have a really stiff, like, chops and really stiff, like, it's like, oh, I gotta dial back a little bit because he's not one of the wrestlers I could just roughhouse with. He's just a singer. I gotta knock it off. But it was really fun, and I'm really glad we got to be part of that because the video is really cool. The song is crazy catchy.
It's so good. So good.
It's a lot of fun. And
So-
Dad and Uncle Suka both really enjoyed getting to know Montesi and work with him. He did a song, like a WXW theme song for us, and then he just kind of blew up, and he's doing themes for all these big names, and we're super proud of him.
So I got to ask, I'm guessing that Joe saw that. What did he think of it? And because I see so many like of these artists, these rappers, these hip hop artists. I've seen quite a few of them do like songs for him. So has he seen that one, or what does he think of it?
I actually have no idea. I don't get to see Joe very often, but we never brought it up, and I really don't know if he's ever seen it. But next time I'm with him, whenever that will be, I'm going to make sure that he knows about it because it's really cool.
But yes, it was really neat. Okay. Well, Monty, that's all I got.
Okay.
Want me just to close it out, or
I can go ahead and close it out. Okay. So this is our first time on YouTube. As y'all know, there could possibly be a ban of TikTok. We don't know yet. We got to wait till the Supreme Court comes out on January 19th. If TikTok does go, you can find us here on YouTube. That being said, we do have new episodes available on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts. This is a part of our Roman series. This is going to be the Tribal Chief era. That was created by Lauren. Guys, I'm so proud of her, you guys. She's just so good on this. Also, I do want to let you know you can always find us on Twitter at Acknowledge the Dynasty at ATD Podcast 23. And of course, if you do go on there, you can go on our link tree, go into our bio, click our link tree, and you'll be able to see all of our stuff, and you can follow us there. And of course, since this is my first time signing off on YouTube, I'm so excited. Okay, guys, of course, please be sure to click the like button as well. If you don't like it, you can send it to your haters. They need motivation. But speaking of haters, drink your water. For the love of God, watch your back for chair shots. How many times do I have to say this? Do not. Just pay attention to the chair shots. Watch your back for them. Acknowledge your OTC, Roman Reigns, and acknowledge the dynasty. Thank you so much, Vale.
Thank you, Vale.
This is really fun, and I'm really, really glad that we got to do this. Thank you for reaching out, and just keep doing the awesome work, and I'll be watching every step of the way.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's our honor to do what we do. So, listen, you all have a great night, and we out. We out.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. My dog's about to bark again any second.
Still live?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm still live. Oh.